Good morning. I am Kate Fronta, your worship associate, and on behalf of First Unitarian Church of Wilmington, Delaware, I welcome you to our worship service. You are welcome here, no matter the color of your skin, no matter the type of food you eat, no matter whom you love. If you come from a spiritual or religious tradition, or if you come to us from no tradition, you are welcome here. We are a community of seekers from different backgrounds, and we draw our inspiration from sources including the wisdom of world religions, humanist teachings, and direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder. Please learn more about Unitarian Universalism and our church, including what's happening and going on around here, on our website at firstuuwilm.org. For those of us in the building, we are still following some COVID precautions. We thank you for keeping your mask on over your nose and mouth for the whole service. And we can sing. We are singing softly during the hymns. And after church, we have social hour, which is absent of food and drink and coffee, but full of festive fellowship fun. So this month, yes, this month the worship associates are sharing a brief awakening story to go along with our Soul Matters theme. So my story is I walk a path in the woods as often as I can, and it is a couple of miles. I've been walking this same path for 5 years, and every time I find it is not the same path. Each time I cross the creek or I climb what I call Heartstone Hill, something is different. The leaves, the sky, the sounds of the bugs and the birds and the blue jays, especially right now. Each time I am different. This is my awakening. Each time to my path, to where I am in that moment. And it has become one of my most important practices. I wonder if you have a practice that you do that is regular and repeated, and how you awaken each time. So now, please join me in preparing our hearts and minds for worship.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Larry Piers, minister here at First Unitarian Church of Wilmington. And I'm so glad that we could celebrate this Easter Sunday, this awakening of spring in the world around us, and hopefully in our own inner world as well. So glad that we have the University of Delaware School of Music Faculty Jazz Group with us today. And don't mind it if occasionally you see me dancing through the aisles. It's just it's something that happens on occasion. I want to invite you into this ever-widening circle of love and compassion. There's a place for you. There's a place for the new you that you always discover. Our opening words are by Charles Flagg, entitled Easter. We seek life's meaning in the wonder of morning and the freshness of springtime, and in each other's hearts and minds. Yet still we hope for something more, a break in the ordinary, an infusion of the unexpected, an explosion of glory, a miracle, revealing more than we hope to understand.
For those online, if you have a chalice at home, I invite you to join me by lighting it now. Our chalice lighting today is adapted from Annie Besant. Annie was a British theosophist and women's rights advocate in the late 19th and early 20th century. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May all those who feel themselves as one with thee know they are also one with every other. And now, please stand in body or spirit for our hymn number 1005.
Praise now for the budding green, April's resurrection scene. Praise now for the shining hours, starring all the land with fire. Praise now for the summer rain, feeding day and night with grain. Praise now for the tiny seed, holding all the world shall need. Praise now for the garden root, meadow grass and orchard fruit, bread for hills and valleys broad. Bring we now our thanks to God. Praise now for the snowy rest, falling soft on nature's breast, for the happy dreams of birth, brooding in the quiet earth, for this year of wonder done. Praise to thee, all glorious one. Hearts rejoice and voices sing. Praise and love and thanks we bring.
Please join me in affirming our mission and speak together the words. First Unitarian Church of Wilmington is a beloved community that nourishes minds and spirits, fights injustice, and transforms the world through loving action.
each week when we gather, life has happened since the last time we gathered, and we are holding in our hearts those things that we care about, those things that we have a concern for, either for ourselves, for people that we know and love, or for our world. So let's first attend to our own heart and what it is that we are holding this morning, what care and what concern abides there for you right now. And during this shared silence, we'll have an opportunity to be with those concerns, following which I will give an invitation to speak those concerns into this room aloud or to write them in the chat. So what we now will do is gather in a shared silence and attend to the care and the concerns of our own heart. What care or concern, what name would you like to hold up in this room and speak aloud? You may do so now or write it in the chat. May all whose names were spoken, those written in the chat and those not spoken, find peace and healing this day. Let's join now in a time of reflective meditation, which will be followed by a music meditation or meditation in song. The contemporary Buddhist teacher, Lama Shura Das, names our realities when he says, all life contains both joy and sorrow. We would like to concentrate on the joy and forget the sorrow. But how much more spiritually skillful it is to use everything that we meet in life as grist for the mill of awakening. So with open and accepting hearts, may we take in this message now. May we use everything in our life as grist for the mill of awakening. And by so doing, we rise again and again to the occasion of our life. We become what we are becoming. And we know that sometimes we have to strain our vision far on the horizon until we begin to see some glimmers of hope, some hints of possibility. But we strain our vision nevertheless to see what hope might lie before us. And by so doing, we rise again and again, and we become what we are becoming. We live in expectancy as we begin to experience new buds of possibility pushing through the hardened soil of our life, like the relentless crocuses of early spring. We push through, nevertheless. And by doing so, we rise again and again to the occasion of our life, and we become what we are becoming. O Spirit of life and love, may we continue to draw strength from you. May we continue to draw strength from the wholeness of life and from one another. And by so doing, we rise again and again to the occasion of our life. We become what we are becoming.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Great. So our music meditation this morning is a lovely song written by Mary Gregolia entitled Becoming. You may be familiar with it. If you are, please join in right away from the beginning. If not, I will sing it through one time, and then hopefully you'll start to feel comfortable to join in. The first time through, we use the word I. The second time, we use you. And the third time, we'll use we. Okay, so please feel free to sing along as soon as you feel possible. Okay. I am who I'm becoming. I am all I have done. I am what I am dreaming. I've only just begun. I am who I'm becoming. I am all I have done. I am what I am dreaming. I've only just begun. You are who you're becoming. You are all you have done. You are what you are dreaming. You've only just begun. You are who you're becoming. You are all you have done. You are what you are dreaming. You've only just begun. We are who we're becoming. We are all we have done. We are what we are dreaming. We've only just begun. We are who we're becoming. We are all we have done. We are what we are dreaming. We've just begun.
Our reading today is the poem Beginners by Denise Levertov. From too much love of living, hope and desire set free, even the weariest river winds somewhere to the sea. We have only begun to love the earth. We have only begun to imagine the fullness of life. How could we tire of hope? So much is in bud. How can desire fail? We have only begun to imagine justice and mercy, only begun to envision how it might be to live as siblings.
Tulips adorned in their colorful red and purple robes for the occasion, rehearsing their songs too. As I strolled towards the church, I was humming to myself some of the hymns that I knew were coming in the service that morning. No one but I could sense the vibration of those words within me. As I approached the church there on Marlborough Street, my eyes looked above the remains of the 18th century facade and tower to see the high modern architecture that was constructed following the fire that destroyed the historical church building in 1969. There on that corner, it seemed to me that the past and the present, that honored tradition and a promise to the future converged. I entered the church. It was still early, but not too early to discover that the coffee had been made. And so I wove my way over to the kitchen. I said good morning to Bridie, who was the woman who dutifully prepared the coffee and the treats on most Sundays. As I dutifully grabbed a cup of coffee to pre-taste the fresh brewed beverage, I reminded Bridie, you know, some preachers rely only on the Holy Spirit, but I also require just a little caffeine as well. She chuckled with me and continued her work. When I entered the sanctuary, I scanned its high ceilings and I noticed that the organist was beginning to rehearse. And then I noticed, in the still almost empty sanctuary, Alice. She was a retired Universalist minister in her 80s who now lived around the corner at the Everett Hale House. At first, I just noticed her freshly permed white hair and her silk-like dress with many multicolored flowers adorning it. As I got close enough to be heard by her, I said, "Good morning, Alice." And we caught each other's eyes and smiled. And then I said, "Happy Easter, Alice. How are you?" With hardly a pause, she said, "Happy Easter, Larry. I'm getting too old to roll away the stone." We laughed together, and this was like Alice, a little quick quip, a way to kind of knit together our mutual appreciation of one another. Now, those of you who laughed caught on to the reference. So, as to not leave anyone out, let me provide a footnote here. The reference, of course, is the story told in various ways on Easter Sunday across many churches around the world. Following the execution of Jesus by the Roman authorities, the story has it that Jesus was placed in an already prepared family tomb that was donated by a follower of Jesus, Joseph of Arimathea, so that Jesus' body could be entombed before the Sabbath and not left on the cross, as so often happened in those days when those who were executed were just hung there to die. Joseph of Arimathea, he must have been a wealthy man to somehow to have arranged with the authorities to have Jesus' burial take place on the eve of the Sabbath. As far as we can speculate and can imagine, the body was simply and hastily covered with a shroud and placed on a burial bench in a small burial cave with a stone rolled in front of the cave to seal it. The followers of Jesus were all hiding out. They were feeling threatened and scared, not knowing what would happen now that their teacher was dead. These followers were paralyzed by their fear, except that is, as the story goes, a few women. These women decided that they would go to the burial cave, the tomb where Jesus' body had been laid, and complete the burial ritual, bringing along the spices that were required. On their stroll to the tomb, they moved with their grief towards the duties that lie before them. They reviewed their memories of the days leading to Jesus' death, trying to unravel and make sense of how the Romans could actually execute their beloved teacher, as if he were a common criminal, as if he were one of the insurrectionists. Should know how to say that word these days, right? Insurrectionist against the empire, like the zealots of his time. Carried by their affection and their grief, moving forward routinely and dutifully, it then occurred to them, who will roll away the stone from the entrance of the tomb? This is where the story, gets a little interesting, as it says in one of the 4 accounts of these events, this one attributed to Mark. But when they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had been rolled away. It's said in Mark that they encountered a young man. In other accounts of these stories, it's not a young man, it's an angel that says to them, "Don't be alarmed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He's risen. He's not here. See the place where they laid him? But go, tell his disciples and Peter that he's going before you to Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you." And they went out and fled from the tomb. They were trembling, and there was an astonishment that had seized them. And as the text said, they said nothing. Now, although it does say they said nothing, somehow the word did get out. And it has spread and has been spreading ever since. Something in the story has captivated the attention and the fascination of many over the centuries. And as you'll often hear me say, I often like to read Scripture as if I'm reading a dream and allow the interpretation of the dream to with all of its symbols, linger in me as I try to discover meanings and ponder those meanings as well. So it's the same with this story. So those who were left out of the punchline of Alice's statement, hopefully you've caught on now that when she was referring to the stone, she was referring to that lingering image in this dream story of Mark that's told in many places on Easter morning. "I'm getting too old," she said, "to roll away the stone." As we linger and ponder that image in the story on this day, any one of us could name our own condition in relationship to that stone. Some of us may say, I'm too overwhelmed to roll away the stone. I'm too tired to roll away the stone. I'm too despairing to roll away the stone. I'm too discouraged to roll away the stone. I'm too distraught to roll away the stone. These and any number of conditions could define us in this moment. But we may come to recognize in this story that that metaphorical, archetypal stone can represent at any particular time for us whatever seems to separate us from the peace we want to know again in the world. Whatever it is that separates us from the tangible joy that we once knew. That whatever it is that separates us from the embracing the hope that once accompanied us. It seems that there are times in our inner life where we too may ask this essential question, like those women did in the story. Who will roll the stone away? Let those words resonate in all the crevices and corners of this room this morning. Who will roll away the stone that separates us from the peace, the joy, and the hope we long to know? Let those words reverberate within us and among us this morning. Who will roll away the stone that separates us from the peace and the joy and the hope we want to know again? Let those words linger just a little while longer as we hold each other tenderly in this moment, in whatever our condition might be. If not this morning, there are times when any of us may truly wonder who or what or how will the barriers to peace, to joy, and to hope be removed. And then I encountered this story this past week, and I discovered within it a coded message that disclosed a new insight. There it was all along, like a hint in the story, waiting to be amplified. Right there in the story itself, it says, but when they looked up, they saw the stone, which was very large, had been rolled away. Let those words sink in for a moment. The stone had been rolled away. Let those words ricochet among us and within us. The stone had been rolled away. Let those words resonate within these walls and reverberate into our personal and collective worlds. The stone had been rolled away. Even as these words, as the story in these words can speak this truth right now, that we dare to remember on this day that sometimes, through no effort of our own, sometimes through no scheming of our own, sometimes when we don't even move a finger, the grief that has weighed us down sometimes lifts and is rolled away. Right? The despair that may have clouded everything within us sometimes floats aside and is rolled away. The sadness that has us in its grip sometimes lets go and is rolled away. Of course. Of course, it's not 100% certain, but it does happen. Doesn't it? May we find here a universal reminder that we can often forget that when we are in the midst of being despairing or distraught or discouraged, the reminder is encoded in the images in this ancient story. The reminder is in the mysteries of nature around us. The reminder is in our own life experiences. Remember, from those dead branches, the yellow flowering of spring can blaze in front of us once more. Remember that the dry, barren earth, through that dry, barren earth, those crocuses crawls out to remind us in their own timing, that they indeed will unfold once more. Remember, even our own broken, grieving heart, in its own time, finds ways to live and to love once more. I know it. You know it. But it doesn't hurt to have a few reminders tucked in now and then. This is the rebounding truth within life itself. The stone of our despair, our grief, our despondency, our discouragement can, could, and may roll away. This is not a denial of grief, of despair, or of loss. It's just a reminder that even though not always certain, but sometimes within life itself, there can indeed be a detour that we had not always planned or constructed our own, a detour that can take us back to hope. In the sanctuary of our own heart, in this sanctuary this morning, let us proclaim the fact that hope can and sometimes is relentless in spite of ourselves. May we live in that expectancy. As our poet Denise Levertov exclaimed in her verses, even the weariest river winds somewhere to the sea. But we have only begun, she says, to love the earth. We've only begun to imagine the fullness of life. How could we tire of hope? So much is in bud. That's a verse that just deserves repeating by all of us. Say it after me. How could we tire of hope? So much is in bud. I'm listening.
How could we tire of hope? So much is in bud.
Right. And the poet also reminds us that it's not always just up to us. She traces another truth in these verses that we might sometimes forget when she writes, "We have only begun to know the power that is in us if we would but join our solitudes in the communion of struggle." Now, this does not have to be an ethereal or an esoteric truth. We can know it in our bones, and some of us do. We can know it in the stories like this one that capture our heart and cause us to hope again. So I did come across this story this week of a small village near the toe of Italy, Serra Stretta, where a small but determined committee of women have worked to bring 5 Ukrainian women and their 9 children to a place of refuge in their small mountain town. Imagine what these distraught and traumatized Ukrainian mothers and children, imagine. They could have never really imagined, actually, in the midst of the sudden struggle and suffering that they were experiencing because of the war, that there would be anyone that would know about them, anyone that would invite them from any corner of the world, that would open their homes or their hearts or their hope to them. The stone between their deepening despair and a gradual unfolding of hope was rolled away, and they found some safety, some moments of peace, some unexpected, overwhelming care surrounded them. Here's an example of how hope can be in bud. Antonio is a 9-year-old boy. He was born in this mountain village. His mother is Magda, and she's a granddaughter of Polish Jews who had to hide their identity during the Holocaust. She speaks English and Polish and Italian, so she was a great help at bringing these families to their village. Antonio accompanied his mother to each event with the refugees, and within 3 weeks' time, Antonio had come to know the Ukrainian Miroslav, a 7-year-old boy. For the first 3 days, Miroslav did not speak. Not one word. He was traumatized by what he had seen and heard in their escape from Kiev to Warsaw. And then his first utterance occurred when his mother took a seat in the restaurant. And at that moment, he let out a piercing scream. Mama, Mama, no. And through a translator, they came to understand that he was adamant about not having his mother sit by the window. He was terrified that a bomb would come through and break the window, that glass would fly and cut you to pieces. Antonio, the Italian youngster, knew just what to do. He took Miroslav by the hand. Antonio used gestures to convince Miroslav that they could play a card game together. And somehow, with neither child knowing the other's language, they began to play. 2 weeks later, the Italian boy and the boy from war-torn Ukraine continued to spend time together. And when Antonio was asked how it was going, Antonio flashed a big smile and said, "Miro è il mio migliore amico." Miro is my best friend. Hope sometimes unfolds this way, through our own ordinary, which can become extraordinary responses to the suffering of others. In fact, I believe that the resurrection might actually be wasted when what we desperately need right now is that ongoing capacity to not lie down, but to rise up again and again in this life while we're still living. Resurrection may be wasted on the dead, in other words. I strongly believe that there are ways of practicing resurrecting each day, even when we'd rather retreat to resignation, even when we'd rather give up on uncertain hopes or relentless efforting. It could be that a resurrecting hope happens through us, and that we must be patiently relentless in order for it to do so. Resurrection need not be a once-and-done event, but an ongoing process of shaping our lives around and through our despair, our loss, and our cynicism. So, friends, when I reflect upon my life, as I hope you have done as well, reflect upon the lives of others, I can recall times when, in spite of or because of the obstacles in our way, stone or not, that it's never too late to roll away that stone. So, friends, in whatever small or profound ways that you can, start rolling. Start rolling away the barriers to a life lived more abundantly as a sign of real love and compassion. We are talking here about engaging in life deliberately and intentionally. We're talking about not prematurely checking out. Our presence is so desperately needed in so many ways. Another way of practicing resurrection is engaging more fully in what is right before us. So let us cultivate these ways of resurrecting, starting now.
I will sing
Hi there. My name's Rebecca Fisher, and I'm so stoked to be speaking after watching that choir video, because I can't describe to you how wonderful it is to stand up there and sing with the choir instead of at home recording. So, my name is Rebecca Fisher, and besides being a long-term choir member, I'm now a worship associate in training. And back in the final decade of the 20th century, I joined the choir here at First Unitarian. I hadn't lived in Delaware for very long, and I was very interested in expanding my social circles, and I've always found it a really great way to meet people in a new place is to join a choir. I'd been singing in choirs since I was in middle school, and there's nothing like the closeness you feel with people that you sing with regularly. In fact, you too can experience this wonderful feeling. By joining our choir, you could be one of those people standing up there in masks and socially distanced and singing beautifully, and it's just, there's no words for it. It's a wonderful, wonderful gift to give yourself to be part of that kind of vocal community. Now, as I said, I'd sung in a lot of choirs my whole life, but until I was about 50 years old, I had never sung a solo, and I never wanted to. I felt really comfortable being one of the crew. So one evening at choir rehearsal, Carol Scott, hey Carol, I hope you're watching, had sat next to me for years. She was my vocal sister. And she suggested to our then director, Scott Ward, that he give me a short solo. It was just a few measures. Now, I wasn't sure I could do it, but having spent all that time singing with the moral and physical support of our choir, I found I had the confidence to sing out loud and proud, and I have not stopped. I have literally found my voice here at First U. But I want to add that even if you make the devastating choice not to join our choir, there are many ways to find your metaphorical voice here at First Unitarian. So please do join me in supporting the work of this congregation. And may I remind you, there are 4 ways you can give to the church, as displayed on your screen. For those who are here in the sanctuary, you can leave cash or checks in the box at the back of the sanctuary today. You can always mail a check to the church. You can go online to our website to donate. Or you can use the Vanco Mobile Faith Engagement app on your smartphone to make a contribution. So thank you very much for your generosity. Now please join me in dedicating our offering to the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action. We dedicate our lives, and these are offerings.
Thanks again for the music. Thanks to Kathy Harris, our music director, to the choir, to Rebecca, to Kate, to our AV team for helping bring this service together for us today. If you happen to be visiting us today, this is the debut opening after a long closure of our welcome table in the parish hall. If you're wanting to know about why we're so jazzed about this congregation, come talk to someone at our welcome table, and I would love to meet you following the service. So our closing words are, there is by Mary Oliver from a poem called Morning Prayer. There is still somewhere deep within you a beast shouting that the earth is exactly what it wanted. Each pond with its blazing lilies is a prayer, heard and answered lavishly every morning. Whether or not you have ever dared to be happy, whether or not you have ever dared to pray. Let's join together in singing our closing hymn, Lo, the Earth Awakes Again.
Hallelujah, for heaven is earned and pain. winds and morning into praise. Hallelujah. And for churches anthems raise. Hallelujah. Oh, spirits soar and sing. Hallelujah. Hearts leap with the spring.